Hello, my name is Ibrahim Mahama. I'm a visual artist living and working between Accra, Kumasi and Tamale. I had my undergrad training at KNUST at the Department of Painting and Sculpture from 2006 to 2010. And then afterwards I did my MFA there in Painting and Sculpture and subsequently went back there to do my PhD, which I'm still working on currently. The kind of work that I produce mostly would be labeled as installation, but I just think of it as art. In 2012, when I was working on my MFA, I started doing this series of experiments where I started collecting jute sacks, which are primarily produced in Southeast Asia, mainly India and Bangladesh, and imported into Ghana for the transportation of cocoa. But mostly it is used to transport cocoa just once. My point of interest in the material was an aesthetical one, in the sense that it is mostly used to transport cocoa and then later on used to transport charcoal. And those who produce charcoal have different ways in which they label the material. So the material somehow gains character over time. And I was particularly interested in this character and how it almost becomes like a skin, the skin of the body when put together. So I started buying new sacks from the market and then exchanging them with the old sacks, and then working with a series of collaborators to stitch these materials together in large sheets and then covering buildings around the city, railway, bridges. We even did the National Theatre back in 2015 as part of the Exchanger project. KNUST was very important because I did a lot of my early experiments there, where I covered a lot of the halls and then the museum in 2013, one of the early projects. So it was important somehow to be able to have this field to work with, because art, traditionally, artists make artworks which are meant to be within museums or within like hotel spaces or galleries, or that within our own history within Ghana. But the training that I had in art school in Kumasi was very important towards opening and expanding the different forms in which art can take, because we always think of art as something which there is already. But sometimes art can also be radically new. It can propose new ways in which we can look at the world. And it can maybe also propose new ways in which we can find different ways of looking at things. Architecture is also very important within the work that I do, because I don't think of architecture as just the solid buildings that are around, but I also think of it as something which can be in an immaterial form, and also something which dwells on a certain specific history, all that. Some of the early projects I did were navigating some of the old buildings. I mostly like to collect objects which are at a certain point of decay, or which have residues of certain failures within our history, and try as much as possible to see how it can be recontextualized within an exhibition format. Some of the early projects which I did were installing the work in factories, the railway spaces, and also just buildings around the country. By covering the space, I think it gave a lot more life to it, because when you cover something and then you later take the cover off, it allows you to look at the object very differently. And I think that that idea that the covering, even within the traditional context of let's say the market space, people wouldn't necessarily think of it as an artwork, I think was important, because there would have been new conversations and ideas that would have emerged as a result of people interacting with these pieces. So there were a couple of projects that I did over the years, showing at the Venice Biennale in 2015 in All the World's Futures, where I covered the interior of the Arsenale de Corderia. The work traveled significantly through exhibitions in Copenhagen at Kunsthaus in the Tel Aviv Museum of Contemporary Art, at the Broad Art Museum in Michigan, in East Lansing, So there is always this relationship between the inside of the spaces that the works are installed in and also the outside. I also collected shoe shine boxes in Accra and Kumasi in the production of the work Non-Orientable in Cancer. I think from 2013 to 17 when it was first shown at the Pinchuk Art Prize and then subsequently at White Cube Gallery in London. And I think it's very important, the objects and the roles that they play within the world and how it is brought into the context of art. Of course, making art as an artist or creating objects is important, but for me also it is important to somehow think about ways in which a practice can take that can be almost as a gift to the society or generation within a certain period. So in 2014, I started looking at the idea of creating a space because already I was using a lot of space that were very unconventional in making my work as an or showing my work as an artist. So I started thinking about building a studio space in Tamale with the help of my father. And when we started a year into it, I had a conversation with a Ghanaian artist, Kofi Dawson, and I thought it was important somehow to create a space that could shine more light on practices that had emerged in the 20th century, and then also to create a space where art could be recontextualized or seen in a very different way, because there isn't much invested within the cultural sector within our country and within the continent at large. Art like science, technology, and any other discipline, I think is very important. But I think at least within our generation, what is most important is that we have to find ways in which we can further create new degrees of freedom within the work that we create. How can the things that we create become a gift to society and also help further in its transformation? So I think that within our generation, we have to think more about how do we create things that can outlive us and also create new legacies or new ways in which we can think about I think reshaping at least the thinking around a certain generation. A lot was done in the 60s when factories were built, silos, bridges by Kwame Nkrumah when Ghana attained independence. And Ghana almost seemed as if Ghana was in the future, at least I can say at that time. But there have been a series of failures within our own history over time. And sometimes it almost looks as if we are heading towards a certain future, but I think that it's important for us to reflect and look back in the past and go back to those past which were our future in order to find new ways of unearthing new futures that can come. Sometimes art isn't necessarily something which is produced as an object which can hang on a wall. It can also be an idea, whether being it material or immaterial. It can be something that takes a form which allows for gatherings to happen, or for ideas to be discussed, or even for ideas to be created. So I think by creating new spaces, it allows for a new generation to emerge, a new generation of thinkers. Sometimes it's also important for us to take our failures and then expand and explore them in new ways. The idea of the Parliament of Ghosts, which is one of the significant spaces in the institution in Tamale, was created as a result of a project I did in Manchester in 2019 as part of the Manchester International Festival. But I thought it was important to create this work in Ghana, in Tamale, because most of the time as artists, we spend a lot of the significant part of our years creating works or significant works for contemporary institutions around the world. But because we lack the infrastructure here in our own country, it never really occurs to us that it's important at least to create those same experiences for at least the generations that are growing up or that are yet to emerge. And I think that's actually where the revolution is, that we can somehow create something for a generation that will grow up to think differently than what we thought when we were growing up. Because when we were kids, we never really had museums to attend. But I think that we have to be able to create that as a new norm in a way that can allow for the generations that are yet to come to be able to at least access the world and all the knowledge forms that are within it very differently. And it doesn't necessarily have to be just within art. It can be within science, technology, film, music, politics, all the different forms and all the different genres. And at some point, we would even realize that they can somehow merge together. And I think one of the more new radical ideas within our generation will be how to restore faith within our system, and how do we create new spaces, and how do we create new language, at least within our time. Because in as much as we've inherited a lot of things, but it's also important to us at least to take whatever there is within it, both its failures and its promises, and use it as a new starting point for new production systems. Sometimes the future can go back into the past and affect and change it in a very material sense. So it is also one of the hopes within my practice that the work that I produce, the contradictions of it in terms of the capital that it produces as it goes through the art world, can go back into the physical world in itself and somehow maybe acquire an old structure which can be converted into a cultural institution, or even through old drawings we can find new ways in which we can use it as a point of inspiration to create new spaces that can allow for new forms of thinkings to emerge. Art can take many different forms, and I think that it is particularly important, at least within our generation, to further push these boundaries, and maybe who knows what will emerge from it.